Well, good morning and welcome to another Home Hint from Boulder Home Inspection. Today I want to talk about trees and their effect on your house. So I'm looking at a house today that is well treed, and it's, that's a real bonus in a way. You buy an older home, the yard is usually mature, but with trees and with all the beauty that you get from the trees and the shade and so on, you also have issues that you have to deal with from time to time. And in today's situation, the yard site is probably 70 years old or so, and the trees have grown to the point where they're becoming a concern. So I wanted to show you what I'm seeing here, and you need to think about this. And whether you own your house already or you're buying a property, make sure that you take a look at the trees periodically. So in this scenario, this tree next to the house is already causing the eaves trough to bend. So it's very, very close to the house. So in a heavy wind, I'm sure that it's banging against that eaves trough. And then when you pan up through here, it's probably 50 feet above the house and leaning over the house. So you also have some small Manitoba maples growing up next to the house here that need to get dealt with. Some of these trees are starting to die, hanging over the roof. It's really important that you think about trees and do maintenance before it becomes a problem. A lot of people they wait until all of a sudden they need to do an insurance claim. So I'd recommend that you think about this and do it ahead of time. Of course, one of the other issues with trees close to the property is not just the trees touching or affecting the house, but it's the debris that falls off the trees that lands on the shingles. In a situation like this where the shingles are shaded most of the day and you have debris from the trees, needles and so on, you're going to end up with moss on the roof, and that's going to shorten the life of the shingles. In this scenario, you can see where a tree has impacted the house in the past, and as you scroll up, you can see that tree limb's been cut off. Well, they waited too long, and now the tree has caused damage to the house, which is not necessary to repair. And again, there's some moss growth on these shingles, essentially from the shingles getting wet, staying wet longer because the house is so well shaded. So one of the other things that you're going to have to deal with if you've got a lot of trees around your property, of course, is sewer line issues. So you might have large trees in the front yard that are growing the roots down to the sewer line. If it's we'll say 1986 or so, maybe even as late as 1990, you would have clay pipe with loose joints, and those tree roots had a tendency to grow into that pipe and cause backups. So that's something that you would have to consider. And one of the things that you will probably be misinformed about is if there's no trees, you automatically think, well, there's no trees, so there's no roots. But if you can look at this particular tree that was cut down, look how it's grown back from the stump. So here's a situation where the tree is pretty close to the house and there's a negative slope. So I always tell people, be careful when you decide to take trees down. This tree is probably 2 feet in diameter and it's probably 60 or 70 feet tall. That drinks up a pile of moisture. So if you got a situation where there's a negative slope around your house, I have seen situations where people have cut the trees down and caused flooding in their basement as a result of the trees not using up the moisture in the ground. In this house today, you can see that there's a volunteer tree or a seedling that has sprung up. This is probably only about 2 years. These trees grow really, really fast in this area, and I always recommend that you remove them as fast as they get growing, because that tree is going to, over time, put pressure on the foundation wall, and being a wood foundation, it could cause all kinds of damage. So all it takes is for the tree root to break through the outside sheathing on the plywood, and now you've got a spot where moisture will leak in. So take care of these things before they become a problem. So I know this might seem hard to believe, but these cedar trees might seem to tend to like to climb onto the tree and get up onto the roof, and if they can find a pathway into the attic space, then they will. So I always recommend not planting cedars close to the house for that reason, but also for the fact that You know, they're rubbing on the eaves trough here now, and they're beautiful, but they're affecting that. They're quite close to your foundation, putting pressure on your foundation, especially wood foundation wall. So I generally recommend a metal roof anywhere where you got a lot of trees, because the metal roof is more forgiving. It doesn't leak and it doesn't gather up moss and so on. So if you look at these shingles, they're pretty much worn right out. And the trees, both the shade of the trees and the debris that comes off the trees, is contributing to that problem. So if we scan over here, we look at the metal roof of the garage. They've got a snow stop, and you can see just how much material, even though those trees are a real good distance away, they're probably 25 feet back, still you get all of this debris on the roof. So metal roof is better, but you still got your maintenance to do.